Good. In
Why
terms
don't we
of
start and talk about a little bit about the GovTech Forum, the GovTech
okay,
Latam Forum?
okay, sounds good. Sounds good. It's getting way beyond what we expected. I mean, positively. So yeah, expecting to have a very interesting week. A very interesting week. And what is best is that this is the first edition, and there have been partners, local partners, in Venezuela, Panama, Colombia, Chile, Costa Rica, that they're already thinking to create the GovTech Forum Panama, the GovTech Forum
That's
Venezuela, the
awesome.
GovTech Forum Mexico. So I guess it's gonna be 5 months, very interesting for the rest of 2020.
I know, that's awesome. Can you
Yes.
tell something about the partners of the forum who's organizing this?
Yes, of course. I mean, of course, UNDP. So we are happy to have you on board, raising the voice, shouting this out, trying to build together this ecosystem. There are also very good partners in terms of multilateral organizations, such as the Organization of the American States, the OEA in Spanish, the IDB as well,
Yeah.
the Trust for the Americas, and some of our partners from the private sector, friends that in maybe in 20, 25 years, we can think of us as competition, but today we are thinking about colleagues creating an ecosystem. We're good friends. They are also partnering and shouting this out and reaching their networks, reaching their customers, reaching or just pouring all their vision into what needs to be the future of government, which is the main purpose.
Awesome. Can you introduce yourself?
Of course, I think
A little bit
that's the
more
best
about
way.
Chuy. Who's Chuy?
Thank you, Diana. So Chuy was born in Mexico. I don't feel a Mexican. I have been lucky enough to travel through the Latin American region, including Spain and Portugal. So all the Latin speaking, we can say, sorry, Italy. So because of this, I've been working a lot to pour all my technological knowledge. I have a PhD in artificial intelligence as background, so I'm a
That's
technologist.
amazing, I think that we can count with our hands the people that has a PhD in artificial intelligence in the world, actually.
Thank
Do
you.
you know
It sounds fancy, but it was 2012. So according to the pace that technology moves forward, I've been 8 years outdated.
It was a long time ago, but
yes. But what is really positive of this background? I mean, I'm thankful of taking that decision back in the day, because it planted the seed to what we do today. So I learned about all the possibilities, and even though I've never worked with or in the public sector directly, this was the best to do. Like bringing all these technologies, bringing all these algorithms and power and exponentials that we call today, or the 4.0 of everything, bring it into the sector that we believe it's needed the most, right?
I know, that's amazing. So just for everyone to know, Chuy and I met like a year and a half ago there in Merida, in the Latin American Impact Investing Forum, the FLI. And it's a very interesting community of people that works together, to promote impact investing in Latin America. And, I think it was like 2,000 people, right? It's a big community that is promoted by new ventures. And it was amazing because there was what I want to say is there was this amazing connection with a lot of people. I truly believe that I was Mexican, I don't know, in my past lives or something. I don't know, because I'm so in love with Mexico, the food, the people, the culture. And when I met Chuy, I said, oh my God, this guy is amazing. And we became best friends. And that's why I invited him. We started to plan this forum probably, or I think, I don't know, when did you start to plan the GovTech Latam Forum?
When did we start it? Well, I will say when we realized that it was the new normal for a government worker or politician in general to use Zoom.
I know.
When that was a possibility, we started thinking about the photogoptic, the way it's happening, because actually before 2020 started, what we planned was the Goptic Summit, we were calling it, Argentina and Chile.
Yeah.
So that was the main plan, a physical event. This is the thing that you need to do when you work with the public sector. But then COVID, and in March, in April was the month for the Goptic Forum in Argentina. So
Yeah.
lockdown started in March, and everything changed since March, right? So because of this great opportunity that came with COVID, that we were able to stop and rethink ourselves, we said like, okay, we need to create this online. We were thinking if April was a good month. It felt like it doesn't. Then June was our best shot. And then, as you may think, with new events, it was no time is so close, and we pushed it to the 8th of July, which is next
Yeah.
Wednesday. And
Yeah.
that
It's
was
a
it.
couple of
That was it.
days.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
it. And also, just to mention what really happened that made us feel the possibility. Um, in 2017, I was part of the Global Solutions programs of Singularity University. So I'm very close to the community of Singularity, and we saw a Singularity forum in a platform called Hopi.
Okay,
So
that's great.
it was tens of thousands of assistants in an online event with a stage, with networking, with sessions. So it was like, wow, this feels like the future, right? This feels like a
Yeah.
more coherent, zero emissions kind of forum, right? Like
I know.
if you want to talk about sustainability, this is the way of making these big gatherings about deciding where the world needs to go. Uh, so it sounds like a cool idea. Can we try it? And then we try it. We started talking to some of our friends in the public sector, from the multilaterals, with you, of course. And you can tell them what you thought, and this is what have us so excited about next week.
I know. I
What you
know.
thought? What,
So
what, what what was in your mind when we told you like this? There's going to be an online forum for the public sector. Does
yeah,
that
yeah,
make
I
sense?
know. Yeah. Do you think this is the future of conferencing?
Yes, I think it's going to be bridging a lot of gaps. And when I say a lot of gaps, it's not only on the professional level. Like, for example,
I know.
just in the last 3, maybe 4 years, I've been traveling in between 8 to 11 months
Yeah.
a year. That's a lot. That it's not constant traveling, but that's a lot. It's like 3 days 1 week, 2 days another, and then you sit down back in your home at Christmas, and you look back and you say like, whoa, it was really fast. I have two little daughters, so, and I travel mainly because of going to these events.
Yeah.
So I'm missing my personal life, and I'm trying to build a professional life just because these events were happening physical.
I know.
How many people is willing to bet their personal lives, to lose the
Yeah.
time
I
with their
know.
kids?
It's the
Uh,
trade-off.
it's a trade-off. So
Yeah.
today we are taking out that trade-off. At any
Mhm.
minute right now, it's 9 a.m. here where I am. So they are almost awake. So at any moment you're gonna see Amanda coming here, my
I
5-year-old.
know. I know. Yeah.
So if this
Yeah.
is the future of conferencing, I love it. I have both
Probably.
worlds in my
Yeah.
hands.
And the hours and hours that you spend in the airports commuting,
Yes.
when you lose your
Yes.
flight, that's crazy,
Yes.
I would like to make the calculation of the hours that I have spent in the airports, in the bus, making the connection,
Yes.
in, I don't know, and
Yes.
every stopover. That's crazy.
Yes.
The time that you lose there, and then when you stop, back in 2017, I just had a travel to the Responsible Business Forum there in Singapore. By the way, an amazing city, it's like the future when you're there. And it was like a 17-hour flight from Los Angeles to Singapore. And then I had to fly from Panama to Los Angeles, that it was about 6 hours, I don't remember.
Maybe.
But yeah, okay, so it was almost a day flying.
Mhm, mhm,
It was
mhm.
absolutely crazy.
This year, before I needed to reinvent myself because I'm not traveling anymore, and I was just to just travel
I
and
miss to travel, I have to be honest.
yes,
I want to be in a
yes,
plane right now. But
definitely. I mean,
hey, I
not
don't
in a
want to
plane,
be
but
in
in
a plane every single month,
traveling.
but probably a couple of travel,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. And what you say, it's really true, and this is why I was want to share this big contrast that we felt before and after the COVID or the pandemic in general. In February, I attended the World Urban Forum. It was in
Yeah,
Abu Dhabi.
yeah.
It was a 2-day event.
Oh
So
wow.
from Mexico, I needed to travel first to Honduras to share a conference, then come back to Mexico. Yes, come back to Mexico, then fly to Abu Dhabi. It's a 48-hour commuting,
Wow.
cars, planes, airport times, all, and then just stay there 2 nights. If I can do that from this office and deliver the same value, that's going to be great.
Yeah,
We're going to
I
be missing
know.
something. I believe that the friendship that you and me have today won't be possible through the
No,
cameras.
yeah, sure.
There's this. I'm gonna go a little bit deep on this, but there's this spiritual level of the physical beings that we are missing. There is
I
this
know.
energy sharing that even though in this world distance is a little bit blurry,
Yeah,
you don't feel that. You can't sense the energy of people walking by, and you're missing that
I
in
know.
this future of conference. So there are
Um,
trade-offs as well.
sure. I just wanted to ask you, this COVID pandemic, it's kind of crazy, right? Because it's disrupting the world, supply chains, our lives, at a deeply personal level. How's affecting the COVID-19 your company, OS City, or it has been a positive boost for your company because you're in the digital industry, or what are the kind of impacts you're experiencing from your perspective?
Yeah. When during the times of singularity, I had the chance to have like one-on-one conversations with this futurist guy, Ray Kurzweil. He's one of the key research and future creators at Google today. So he's a great visionary. And in one of these conversations, he said, as an entrepreneur, the main thing that you need is to always remember to be an optimist. So COVID has really shaken us, but we have always been super optimistic about our future. So during March, we had, I need to just set some kind of base. And as a company, as a startup that works with the public sector, you already live with a tight stomach. You already live with a lot
I
of
know.
uncertainty. Every single year is a lot of uncertainty. So when this lockdown came, and because we were not aware, I mean, there are articles talking about influenza in the 30s and these kind of things, but we never lived this before. So it was like, what's going to happen? Is it going to be 1 month, 2 months, a year? It's going to be forever. So when these questions came into the founding team, it was like, what shall we do? The very first week that that pandemic started to get accepted, let's say, in the region, there was that same day there was the first case in Argentina and Chile, which I believe were the first ones in Latin America. This is early March. When this happened, we said to our employees, to the team in Mexico City and Buenos Aires, we said, like, let's close offices. Let's go to your home. We can do remote working. Take the computers, and we'll see. So that was a thing. And 2 months after, we canceled the contracts with our offices. So at some point, that was a lot of strain or a lot of extra stress on the team, because they were like, what happened? Like, are you confining me to my home? Like, I wanted to go to my office, I wanted to work, I want to see my co-workers, I want to see my friends. So it felt like a hard decision today, because I was living in Monterrey, Mexico. Part of the team is in Buenos Aires. Another team is in Mexico City.
But you're used to it, to work
But,
remotely.
but see what's the beauty of this moment? Even though we were tightly coupled, we felt like a team. you were able to see closer connections between the guys sharing a physical space.
I know.
Today, the company is beautifully coupled. The social fabric between us, it's beautifully put back again. Because now we are all equal, right? We were
one step ahead.
Exactly.
These companies that just had to move to home-based work, but because they were enforced to do it, not because it was a natural progression of the business, right? So if you could tell something regarding some sort of recommendation on how to keep that social fabric alive, how to keep the connections and not to lose that. Yes, because we need this social exchange because we are social beings and it's so hard to be behind these screens, right? And build those connections. So what are your recommendations for the CEOs that are listening to you today? How they can keep these connections alive?
Yes, it's a very interesting question because I don't think I have the proper answer, but I have the what we are currently doing answer. So the one of the biggest fears that I had as a CEO, and I say I had because this has changed, was to have this sense of nonsense quantity of meetings every week. Juntitis, we say in Spanish.
Juntitis, Zoom. I'm so bored of
Zoom meetings. Yes, yes. So how can we avoid the sense of just having a meeting because it's the needed when we don't have this actual need to have a meeting. Most of the meetings you can mostly solve them through an email or a WhatsApp message, right? Or we'll call a 10-second call, or voice note, and that's it. So that was one of the main things that I had in mind, like don't fall into these kind of things. But during COVID, we decided to have an early week call with all the team, which is Mondays, a mid-week call, which is Wednesdays, and a closing week call, which is Fridays. So it's Monday morning, Wednesday morning. There is a little bit on the one around the midday of Wednesday. So I'm going to share about that, and Friday afternoon.
Okay.
With this, team already knows that there is a personal space to share on Mondays. Like, how are you feeling? How is family? Are any COVID cases close to you? How are you taking care? Are you believing
it's more personal, right?
Yes, yes. Okay. And before, those calls were very transactional calls.
Okay, like, so you're putting people before the business.
Exactly. Okay. This is gonna be the technologist in me, but we moved from transactional kind of relationships to relational human beings. Okay. So we now have meetings where there is a space to talk, to chat. It's not about how are you doing on your to-dos. Okay. Do you need me? No. Okay. Bye. That was boring,
it. You know? Yeah.
That was it. So today, this is why I believe it's building a greater social fabric in the company, that we are taking care of each other, that we are looking to the humans behind, right? And then also, the same team starts to see uncertain future. So they feel like, for example, one person in the team, he approached me, he says like, dude, my parents are not working because of the quarantine, so I need to help them, but I'm scared because I know how the public sector works and what's going to happen. I need transparency. Are we okay on financials? And I said, and they never asked that before.
I know.
But I loved that he has he feels brave and he feels confident to ask, is my salary secure? Practically, he said.
Of course, because there's so much uncertainty, about the future, your own future regarding, your own health, your own well-being. So then when you see that this economy, it's like disrupted, and you see the figures, the projection, no? We're about to close the year with a decrease of 5% in the GDP here in Latin America. So you say, okay, this is kind of worrying when you see that, I'm so worried because of the unemployment rate has increased to double digits virtually in every country, except here in Uruguay, because they have been very wise in how they have managed the crisis. they haven't had to recur to incur in total lockdowns, but people is so aware of the need to take first of care of them and then to take care of the others. And this is not the case in every country in Latin America, and this is not the case in Mexico, in Brazil, in Colombia, in Panama. You know, people, there's no awareness of the co-responsibility that you have with the other one, right?
Yes, and this same person, he said, like, because I asked are you worried something, like, do you need a loan, do you need something around this, can we help you, or can I help you personally, like do you need money, is this your moment? And he said, no, it's just me worried.
Because there's a lot of emotional distress right now.
This is the thing, and he said, like, and there's people in the team that they won't ask, but I know that they are also worried. And I said, I love this, and tell me what pushed you to approach me and ask these kind of things that they need to have. Like, are they willing to stay silent because they have you? That's okay. But if not, then let's explore the possibilities for them to feel this trust and to take care of each other, as you were saying.
Sure, that's awesome. There how many women work in your company? Do you have women coders?
Yes. We have. I will say we have two teams of developers: the data and AI teams and the blockchain teams. They work together, but we like to organize them like this. The lead in each team is a woman. Pamela, which is in Mexico City, who is in Mexico City, and she's leading blockchain, and Blanca, who's leading the data strategies. So and this is a beautiful thing. I mean, I don't know how different the company will be if the co-founding team will have a woman. This is not something that I mean, it just happened. Maybe it's because we feel braver at some point, I don't know, but we are 4 men leading the company, and then we started to create these leads, these women leads. Then there's also a woman in Argentina, Damasia. She's leading the business development part on blockchain projects. So she's the one. You remember our artisans projects, our traceability projects? She's the one connecting the dots. And this is not quite OSCT anymore, because we want to separate that, but we are creating something that we call the Origin Group, which is the blockchain projects focused on social enterprises or social impact. So not for the public sector, but for indigenous communities, fashion, organics. World, we created the Origin Group, and for the Origin Group, we look for a girl from Bolivia. Her name is Andrea Riveri. So she's doing as the CEO of Origin Group. So we'll see the differences.
We can say you're transitioning into a holding with different business models, different companies, something like that?
Definitely. I don't see it in a near future. I believe that Origin Group needs to grow, OSCT needs to grow, and at some point we are going to tie it together in a holding. Yes.
Sure.
This is what we are doing, and it's because of how easy it is to isolate. Sorry, my dog wants to participate on this call.
I love this in these meetings, because you have like this door open to the personal lives of the people that is, so tight there in the webinars and everything.
Yes, and this is just a parenthesis. Sorry about this, but this dog, it's 7 months, and when he listens to my voice, he starts crying. He wants to come into the office. So it's like, I'm not going out for you. So yeah, it's a very personal part of lives that is getting out in Zoom as well.
Okay, this is really good. So just to make a quick let's say recap of what we're doing here, we're having like this very unstructured conversation with Chuy Cepeda. He's the CEO of OSCT, a company that is dedicated in the digital sector to support governments to advance in digital governance, basically, and smart cities, and how to leverage technologies to advance SDG progress, to move the dynamics of the economy. And we also have here Steven Adler. Steven, can you hear me? Are you there? Can you open your camera, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, but I'm only seeing your picture.
Now let me figure out how to get the camera. Wait,
Sure.
there we go.
So,
There we are.
yeah. Hey, how are you?
Nice to see you again.
Yeah. We
Hello.
met with Steve a couple of years ago in Chile, in Santiago, because we invited him to the 4th Global Forum on Business for Gender Equality. And, you know, he traveled to Santiago. It's close in the end of the world, you know. It's close to the Patagonia. It's an amazing country. And he joined us, and we had a very interesting conversation on the impacts of big data and development and progress and gender equality. And thank you, Stephen, for being with us here today. We were just saying we're having like a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, whatever you have in your hands. We just had the first sip with Chuy, who was sharing with us the challenges of the COVID-19 and the opportunities the pandemic has brought to the business. And well, Steve is the CEO of Ocean Data Alliance, and he's the former chief data strategist for IBM. And I would like to know more about the Ocean Data Alliance. Can you tell us something about yourself first? What's your family situation, whatever, just to know a little bit more about your background and know more about the Ocean Data Alliance.
Sure. Thanks so much. Thanks for inviting me to participate. It's great to see you again. I really loved that forum in Santiago. I thought that was fantastic. Met some wonderful people, and I was super inspired by that event. Yeah, as you said, I was with IBM for 23 years, and my last role was as a chief data strategist. I spent a lot of time at IBM working on innovation, inventing different business areas like data governance. I spent a lot of time working on open data with smart cities and smart nations. And the last 4 or 5 years, I spent working on climate change initiatives. I worked with the United Nations on Sustainable Development Goals. I was a co-founder of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. I worked with the Obama administration on a number of climate change initiatives. I was a member of the U.S. Commerce Department Data Advisory Council. We advised the Commerce Secretary on how data could transform the U.S. economy. And I became very passionate about gender equality. Well, I don't know, how did I become so passionate about gender equality? I did a webinar with the former president. Of course, my wife has been, is a tireless advocate for gender equality, and I learned a great deal about the systemic discrimination against women from my wife. But I also did a webinar together with Reva Levinson, who was advisor to the president of Liberia, Ellen Johnson. And we did a webinar together with her and Joyce Bandra, who was the first female president of Malawi. And Joyce told us a great deal about her struggles as the first female president of Malawi. She told us that women in positions of power don't often have networks to support them, because there aren't networks of women in positions of power. And so they quickly fall under, they quickly find opposition from men who have very extensive networks of power. And they quickly find that it's very difficult for them to get things done, to advance the ball for women's issues in countries where there's a disproportionate amount of power assigned to men. She talked at great length about that. And afterwards, I worked with Eliza Angowangi, who was a journalist at The Guardian, and we hosted an event in Paris during an Open Government Partnership Summit, in which we talked about how even in the IT world, everything has been written by men. All IT programs have been written by men, code written by men. The language of IT is all written by men. The website is designed for men, the entire system. And so, you know, women are half the population, but in terms of the way that systems are designed, they're not usually part of the design team. Or if they are part of the design team, they're part of a male-driven design team. So the very structure of society isn't designed to facilitate easy access for women. And what I was
algorithms are biased because of that.
Yes,
and sometimes it's so unconscious, you know. People, it's not like that they want to, coders, I mean, male coders, they usually don't want to discriminate directly to women, but we have this unconscious bias that are transmitted and let's say that are affected by our past experiences, our background, school, family structures, societal structures.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how do we move that?
I don't know the full answer because you have to unravel. I mean, on one side, you could say culturally, anthropologically, there's so much we have to unravel. On the other side, I think it's just a simple consultation process of including, not just including women in decision-making process. That's not enough. It's purposefully thinking about designing systems for women. That is, designing systems that are used by women for women, so that they appeal to women from the first point, right? Not that women have to figure out how a man might design a website for men to read, but rather designing them for women. That's a design and a development process that I hope we can work on together.
Yeah, definitely. We have to work on that. Steve and Chuy both are the champions of an initiative we're launching. It's the UNDP COVID-19 response, let's say, because we're supporting governments and the business sector across the world. And we've been appointed by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as the lead agency to support the countries and the business sector in the economic recovery of the pandemic, during the pandemic and the post-pandemic. And we are creating this global campaign that we have called Equal Present, Equal Future, because we need to start moving and removing the structural barriers that are affecting women across the world and try to see how we can level the playing field. That's the main issue, because as you said, we are half of the population globally. But the thing in the end is that we don't enjoy all the benefits of the economic growth. We're close to half of women on working age out of the labor market. We have a gender pay gap close to 20%. This is to say that if I get paid, if a man gets paid with $1, we get 80 cents. And there are a lot of other, let's say, non-economic areas which are related to the factors that are impeding women to work on certain areas, And this is so interesting because the digital industry is so male dominated. You still don't see many female CEOs in the digital industry. You see Jeff Bezos and you see, I love this guy that's working with Tesla. I don't remember the name.
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, and you get to see Satya Nadella in Microsoft, and you get to see all the people that it's basically leading the digital industry. Mark Zuckerberg, the big technology companies, these giants, tech giants, are all men. This is so incredible. And in the end, when you get to see the structure, the occupational structure of the workforce in those companies, yes, you get to see some women that are starting to work on services. So you see all these call centers filled with women because we are specialized on customer service and we love to talk. And everyone thinks that women love to talk, but not all women love to talk. Some women love to think. Some women love to make some mathematical calculations. And that there are so many barriers that come from this idea that we're not good enough for mathematics and engineering. And when you get to see how can you attract more women to the industry, you have to do it from, the early ages, back in kindergarten, basically, because the gender gaps start to appear, let's say, when you turn into 6 or 7, there at school, and when you apply some test on mathematics and social and logic and languages, in early stages of your life, you don't get to see the differences. But then at 7 or 6, 8, the gaps start to appear. Yes. Just because we are so affected in a deeply conscious level, because that's the way our brain works. You know, that we have like these two systems, the logic and the intuitive, and close to 90% of our decisions are made based on the intuitive system that was created like 1,000 years ago, just to, you know, if we are close to a fire, we have to take our hands without to think, right? So these are the type of things that we are doing there in the workplace, in the business. We are making decisions based on that. And I don't want to blame anyone, because it's not our fault. It's just the way the society has been built for ages, right? And both men and women have like this structure that it's so embedded, it's so patriarchal in the end, because women used to be a coin in the end. In the and even today, in some countries, in some regions, you get to see those transactions of women in exchange of land, in exchange of, women are sold basically in exchange of economic privileges. Yeah. And those are the type of things that keep reproducing as an endless loop across industries, in the business sector, and even more in the digital industry. Yes. And if we get to see the digital industry as a booster, I'd like to see technology probably as a driver, a booster of economic development during the pandemic and the post-pandemic, because the world changed. And when we used to talk about the future of work, I'm thinking the future of work is now. We need to advance digital skills. We need to advance people with universal access to internet connections. You know, we have to democratize the access to internet connections, but we're not doing anything if we give access to the internet, and if this internet is not, utilized properly, if you don't use it to, to make your human capital to grow, if you don't use it to make your own business to grow, to access new channels, to access, to develop new value propositions. And what's happening right now is that when we get to see that this crisis is affecting deeply SMEs, women-owned businesses, and it's affecting deeply women, so technology can become that, that leverage, that, as I said before, the booster that can make to jump. And how did you see that? How can we use technology to address those gaps, and to make it like a dynamizer of the local economies, and to utilize the internet connections properly to advance and share value with the communities, share value between businesses, big businesses, these tech giants, and the small ones?
So I guess I would say that first, I totally agree with you, and I love your passion on this topic. It's totally correct. I remember a dinner party that I went to in New York a couple of years ago I was at the UK consulate, and we were there to celebrate a UK-based startup, an IT startup that had just gotten a significant amount of investment from the financial services industry. And they were there promoting themselves, and I was invited along with about 15 other people. It turned out that evening that the majority of the people at the table were women, and they were very successful women. There was a producer from CNN, there were some CEOs of startups, and this young man, who was the CEO of this UK-based startup, was there describing his company and what they had done, and the money that I think they had just gotten like 40 million pounds invested. And the women at the table asked him, well, how many women developers work at your company? And he said, we've had a really hard time recruiting women to participate. It's hard to get women developers. And then somebody else asked him, well, when you got this big investment, what did you do with it? And he said, well, of course, I got a new car, and we got some new furniture for the office. And she asked, what kind of furniture? And he talked about a pool table and a foosball table and sofas and a bar, and and she said, well, it sounds like your office is designed like a frat party, like a fraternity room at a college. It sounds like you designed your office for men.
Yeah, of course.
And she then said, so what policies have you created? Are you using to create an environment for women to work? Are they allowed to work remotely if they have a family? What have you done to create an environment in which women would want to apply for a job at your firm? And the CEO was completely mystified by the question because he had never thought in those terms before. He had just simply thought, I'm going to run a company the way everybody else I know runs a company, and I'm going to try to find women developers to work on my company, without realizing that the entire structure that he had created was designed by men for men and didn't include women in any way. Policies, work environment, color of the furniture, nothing.
Sure. Of course
completely
not.
designed. So when you ask that question, I think there are a lot of men who probably are completely unaware of what an environment might look like that would be conducive to attracting women to work there. So that's the first thing, is when we have startups in the digital environment, we have to educate men who mean well, who want to do the right thing, who want to encourage women to work there, to create an environment that women want to work in. That's designed to be equal, not just male driven.
I know.
The second
Okay, we need to include the voices of women across, decision making.
Yes, but also educate men, because
Of course.
how to create environments that are good for them. And that's especially true in Latin America, where there already are some really successful examples of digital transformation in cities like Santiago, Chile, in Medellin, Colombia, in Buenos Aires, Argentina, even to a limited degree in Lima, Peru, in Panama City. There are some great IT hubs all across Latin America, but they're still mostly, as you know, male dominated. And there's a cultural change that has to occur in those environments, in the leadership environments there, to help demonstrate what enormous success can occur in society in which women are given the opportunity to be equal in the workplace.
Definitely. Sure. Okay, Chuy, do you have some thoughts on that?
This is kind of linked with what we were saying about Pamela and Blanca and Damasia, and why the origin group is being led by Andrea. What we have found when there is a woman in a position of leading is that everything is neat. Everything is way more organized. Everything, it's different. It's like, I'm not generalizing, but from my perspective, it's like company with force and women in the company, they do brain force. This is what we perceive. And so when you mix this, it seems to how UNICEF described it as, it's the brains and muscles, right? It's like, okay, thank you, please coordinate this, and then we'll operate and we'll execute the rest of it. But this is what we see. This is why I was saying, like, I'm not sure how different the company would have been if we had a co-founding woman in OSCity. In the origin group, we have one, but in OSCity, know how different it is. Again, what Steven was saying, it's a very big challenge. Our target customer, it's governments, Latin American governments. So taking a woman to talk with Latin American public sector, that's a closed door. Today, that's a closed door. There is no chance for a woman to go selling to a politician in Latin America. Again, I'm throwing this as a generalization. There are definitely specific cases and particular cases, but in general, the perspective feels like that. So and this is where we are tapping. I remember at the early beginnings, we were supported by a grant from the Civic Alliance the Civic Technologies Alliance of Latin America. And what they did to support us beyond the grant was to provide consulting services for all our texts in digital, in emails, in signature, to be gender inclusive. I've never seen that before, and I was like, "What is that the real job?" That was the thing at that time. It was like, and when they started changing here and there bits and pieces of our message in the website, here and there in our apps, in the menus of the apps, it was like, I can taste the difference. I can see this difference. And from that point on, there is this constant reminder, like, be careful about how you speak. And again, touching what Stephen said about Latin America, it's easier to fall in gender inequalities or in gender unequal or unbalanced speech in Spanish than in English.
Yes,
It's easier
because
to
we have
exclude
these
women.
differences that are framed by the how you finalize some of the words.
Exactly.
Female or male, and it's kind of easier in English, but it's not completely gender blind. The English language as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. Just for the audience to have a very simple example. In English, you can say all people, and in Spanish, it's either todos or todas.
Exactly. It's challenging. I know.
So you're prone to make more mistakes in that world. Even if you're trying to be inclusive, you are not aware. So it was for us this consulting and this support that we received back, that in my mind, we're being exclusive without even noticing. So
you're excluding people. Yeah, just with the words. And then you send a message. And I think that's something that really happens with people, especially women, that don't feel attracted to the digital industry just because they don't picture themselves in the industry. And that's because you don't get to see the role models. You still have this image of the geek guy working and coding with the hood and the laptop and the tablet, but you don't get to see the image, the role model of a girl coder, then, bringing all the ideas, the diversity, and the kind of things that women bring. I was just remembering that a couple of years ago, and I don't know if you remember, Steve, that the BCG just presented the outcomes of an investigation in research they did on the correlations between innovation and diversity. And they actually found that there was a positive correlation between those companies that were more diverse. So they became more innovative. And it was like also backwards. The companies that were more innovative were also more diverse. And therefore, the marketing, let's say, like the marketing mix, the diversity mix that they kind of looked into it was, okay, I have men and women, but I have men and women with different backgrounds and from different industries, right?
Yep.
From the manufacturing industry, from food industry. If I have like these people with different backgrounds, I can bring different ideas and I can open the door to innovations. If I have people across the life cycle, I have the centennials, the millennials, and the people that it's the X generation and the Z generation, the X whatever alphabet generation is. So we can bring all the experiences, all the ideas to the table and start planning and doing something. And the big challenge here with the companies, it's how we can make to open the space for everyone to be heard. Because I don't know if you know this, but it's proven and we have evidence that we women, we don't negotiate that well for ourselves, but we negotiate really well on behalf of others. So when you get to see what are the differences in the wages, in the remuneration that it's negotiated by men and women across industries, you can get to see that usually men have higher salaries just because they are stronger negotiators, yeah? But from that perspective, because we women, we don't do it for ourselves. And those are the kind of things that you have to consider as a CEO, you have to consider as a human resources manager, just to incorporate the business actions and measures to prevent that to happen. So if you adopt like a gender blind scale, you don't open the door to the negotiation of your salary, but you consider objective factors such as experience, education, etc., etc., etc. And based on that, you open the space for everyone to be equally remunerated. Those are the kind of things. And I don't know if you also have heard about how women were more included in the orchestras, right? classical orchestras, because they used to be male dominated, and they only had to put a curtain just to make gender blind auditions and just to hear the instrument. So the change that it brought is that I don't care about who's up front, right? I'm listening just the instrument, and that's the way they made that the participation of women in the workforce during the orchestras passed from 10% to 40% in about a decade. We're still lagging behind, but that's an improvement, and that's the case in many industries, such as the digital industry. And those are the kind of things that we are working with the Gender Equality Seal, which is one of our flagship initiatives in the Business for Gender Equality program. It's just because the idea is to remove discrimination across regulations, policies, and how those frameworks translate into actual operations, and how we can make those changes just to design this type of actions to level the playing field, so compensate for the disadvantage suffered either by women or by men, or to generate actions that are beneficial for everyone regardless of sex, such as having flexi time, or such as having a policy for home-based work. It works for everyone, but it's so important to work in the corporate culture, because in the end, if you have a corporate culture that is respectful of human rights, that's the basics. And then if you start opening the door to how do we respect women's rights and men's rights, and we start generating the opportunities for everyone to grow, for everyone to contribute, for everyone to become heard or to be heard. So I think that's the key to start making these transformational changes in the workplace, in the way, not only in the workplace, also in the value chains, because you can start putting in place specific actions in the workplace, but you have to be consistent with those that are part of your supply chain as well. So if you respect human rights, if you respect women's rights, you have to ask your own suppliers to do it as well and demand that. So just to let the people know that it's joining and probably it's listening to us, because we have right now a YouTube live session. This is to let you know that we're having like this very, very warm conversation with Chuy and Steve. We have met each other a couple of years ago. We became really good friends, and both are corporate champions of the Equal Present, Equal Future Global Campaign, which is UNDP-led. And this is part of the response that we are implementing on the way to overcome the COVID crisis and support the business sector, ensuring they implement an inclusive and gender responsive business action, right? So thank you so much for joining Steve and Chuy, and we're going to have the next sip of coffee. And I just want to ask you, what do you think, how we can leverage technologies from the public policy perspective? And this is just the appetizer for the GovTech Forum that we will have on Wednesday. And I invite you all to join at 9 a.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. How we can use technologies in the COVID crisis, during the pandemic and during the post-pandemic, to navigate the crisis, for making that these SMEs, which are deeply affected, the industries, the aerospace, the digital industry, the banking industry, the insurance industry, to be more aware of the need of, going or passing or building a new economic model based on a more conscious capitalism, if we want to say, that it's not based on the concentration of wealth in just a couple of hands. How we can leverage technologies to have better public policies, how we can leverage digital transformation on behalf of poverty reduction, the reduction of inequalities, and specifically to overcome structural barriers affecting women. What do you see? Who wants to come first?
Well,
it's a tough question,
I can jump. I'll take it.
Go ahead.
So so I think these times are going to bring a critical damage, particularly for the Latin American region. I see a critical, unavoidable damage. But this is going to be a great opportunity to build back empathy with this transversal or multidimensional perspective that you were saying. For example, a very tangible moment right now. Before COVID, every time that I was not traveling, I was doing home office, and we decided to do homeschooling as well. Education is not the best, even if it's private in Mexico. So we wanted to leverage these credentials of PhD, blah blah blah, to pour that on the little ones. And then there are multiple layers of empathy there. First, with teachers, like today, we don't know how education needs to be reinvented. The schools here are not, they cannot keep working on the way they were used to. Second, on the marriage relationship, because then, as Elizabeth was writing on the chat here and so on, there is this commitment to do two things. One, an opportunity to jump into the labor market because you can have an internet connection and you can do that. But there is also the homeschooling, and that's mixed world. You remember the picture that you shared about mindful masculinities? Yeah, what's the name? So it is this. It's like I'm working here, hide here, and so that my wife can do something else. So just with this example, we can see an empathy rising with the teachers, with the schools, with wife, with education, work, economy, with providing. So I guess this is the moment, this critical damage that I'm seeing for the region will give us this moment to sit down and feel like, oh, do you see the reality of all these worlds? And hopefully this can become like the post Second World War Germany, right? Like there was a critical damage that brought us the opportunity to invent ourselves into a better society. I believe this is this. I mean, I started this conversation saying that as an entrepreneur you need to be an optimist. so this is what I'm believing that it's going to happen. We are going to raise unprecedented levels of empathy. We're going to go back to this sense of humans or social beings beyond human beings, and this will bring the opportunity for everyone's to stop of thinking on transformation. We were talking about digital transformation. I believe this is heading towards a digital reinvention, right? Beyond transformation. I guess it's no longer an evolution of things, it's a reinvented
complete disruption.
Things. It's a disruption in general. We were talking about that in different conferences here and there in communities, but we never felt that so close as COVID has shown us that it's
digital disruption.
So that's what I believe.
Yeah, Chuy, I agree with you. And I think also when I think about Latin American governments, a lot of the interactions that citizens have with government in Latin America is still human and paper-based. And there are large amounts of government services which are not digitized yet. And so the post-COVID recovery is an opportunity to address the fact that for citizens to interact with government during a pandemic, there has to be an online service available because they can't come in. Whether that's applying for a driver's license or for health insurance or for any type of social benefit, there should be an online form for that. In the past, when social services were digitized, they were by default developed by men. That is, the digitization was developed by men, and women weren't considered to be a distinct interest group with a distinct way of interacting. So now there's an opportunity, I think, to go and design web services that connect government to women with services that are designed by women for women. It's usually women who interact with government in specific ways as a representative of the household. And now's an opportunity to build services that specifically cater towards them. So I look at the post-COVID recovery and I think here's an opportunity for Latin American governments to digitize their interaction with citizens and to do so thinking proactively about how do we engage women, how do we develop online services for women, How do we increase our sensitivity to women's issues? How, for example, do we allow women to report things like domestic violence, which is a huge issue across Latin America, especially?
Excellent. Okay, so
look at that as an opportunity to think about how do we help governments think about women as an underserved population that deserves interfaces and services designed by them for them from their government.
okay, that's good. So we're gonna have our last sip, and we're going to open the floor to some questions and some people with selected interventions. I'd like to pass the floor to Anil Kapuria. Anil, it's also an amazing person that I've met there in Merida, and he's the CEO of a company called Farm.itus, and they're working an amazing work in Mexico. Using technologies, leveraging technologies to promote rural development. So, Iria, can you please help Anil to open the mic and open the camera so he can make the intervention?
Hi.
Hi, Anil.
How are you?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh, okay. Let me see how can I.
Yes, try to activate your camera, please. Are you there with Letty?
Can you see me now?
No, sweetie.
Okay. Oh yeah, start the video.
Yeah, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
now. Yay, how are you?
Yeah. Well, thank you for giving me a chance. Yes, I heard what Jesus talked about. Jesus, at the start of AI happened in two institutions. One was MIT, another one was Stanford. And I had the opportunity to work in early 80s at Stanford doing the research in AI. Okay, and we developed the first commercial system that was used at a company called Tandem Computers in Silicon Valley. You were probably not old enough, but that was the Google of my time. Then I spent time at Harvard Business School, did my business management, developed my ventures with India, and then now I've developed a social venture which is called PharmIT. And in PharmIT, we have embedded technology we learn rather than coming up top down to take the technology. We know that, and I'm sure you will look at it too, that the technology takes about anywhere about up to 10 years to reach the base of the society's pyramid. And in the society's pyramid are 70% of 700 million women farmers. There are something about just several hundred million women artisans. Okay? And they are totally exploited. They get less than a cent for any consumer dollar that you spend on their product, less than a cent. One of them that I have worked with, and right now I have Professor Leticia with me from the institute. We felt that we have to take a three-legged strategy. One leg is the technology, second leg is the entrepreneurship. And the third is something which is already in the hands of the youth. And what is that? That's the smartphone technology they already have. I did that work in the inner cities. I was a chief operating officer. You can read my LinkedIn profile, so I won't talk too much. I'll just go directly into where we are using AI in our platform. We found out that women and artisans, they're not always well read, or they don't have formal education to read. That is the gap. Unless your technology can fill, you wouldn't succeed. Okay, and you will keep the technology only at the top of the pyramid. And so we invested our time and R&D in India and in Silicon Valley, and we said that we will consumerize some of these technologies so that we can offer it free uh, and create that. That's exactly what we did, and we used AI for voice processing. And then we use the AI for value chain management. we did not go your way of, we did not get enamored by the blockchain. We know that the heart of that is a distributed, should I say, distributed ledger. We have that. We took the distributed ledger approach, ported it on an Oracle platform, and Oracle made us the velocity partner right now. And today,
Awesome.
I also have here Professor Leticia. And
Hi, Letty.
Hi,
Hey, how are you?
good morning.
Good morning, Letty. Okay, that's amazing, Anil, and thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
I think that
Letty will tell you about Letty
Sorry?
will tell you about how we are working with the municipality.
Sure. Letty, go ahead.
Ajá. Buenos días para todos. Sí, bueno, como sabes, empezamos organizando el hub de Pátzcuaro, pensando que sea un modelo piloto y reproducible para diferentes estados en México o en otros lugares. Se preparan materiales de entrenamiento. Bueno, estamos viendo la estrategia de tener videos para que la gente que tome el entrenamiento en el uso de la plataforma después pueda hacer otra práctica. Pero lo interesante es que vamos vinculando a los municipios en este ejercicio. Hemos firmado cartas de acuerdos de colaboración con al menos ya 2 municipios y estamos gestionando en otros, y también organizaciones sociales y también centros de investigación que están aquí cerca y que ya tienen trabajo hecho con comunidades, y la idea es unir todas las sinergias, ser multicolaborativos. Entonces, estábamos en esta organización cuando de repente el gobierno de México emite una convocatoria para conformar lo que ellos llaman los nodes, y son hubs o nodos que ayudan a la economía social y solidaria. Entonces, ahora nos da la pauta para continuar con este trabajo desde el soporte teórico y político y todos los programas que ahora puede desarrollarse a través de este node. Estamos integrando la propuesta y esperamos ser favorecidos en la convocatoria, y definitivamente está vinculado a la estrategia de Farmit para empoderar a la gente, sobre todo mujeres, jóvenes, pequeños productores.
Excelente. Gracias, Leti. By the way, les digo que pueden utilizar en el canal, la gente que está sumada en el seminario, hay canales de traducción a español y a francés, entonces pueden escuchar perfectamente lo que yo estoy diciendo en este momento y lo que Leti acaba de decir. So, switching to English again, and I want to thank you, Anil. Please, Iria, let me know if you have more questions or interventions.
That's fine.
Hey,
Yeah,
gorgeous.
next one we will introduce you
Sunny Panic.
we will introduce
Sorry,
you to the
Anil.
mayor.
Sorry?
Yeah, so we will introduce you on the 9th, the mayor of Quiroga, right? Yeah, so we will, because that is a municipality. You had last time when we had so we will bring her in the next one.
Awesome.
Okay?
Oh, awesome. Okay, so thank you, Anil. Thank you for sharing this with us. I love it. I love this. Iria, please, if you want to open your mic, please let us know. Do you have more questions? We're about to close in 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Just opening the floor. And okay, so let's start the day and do more things beyond this. Can you please open the mic, Iria, and let me know?
Hello, everyone. Yes, we have
and please open your camera so everyone can get to see you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
They can see you.
Elizabeth Mendez comments that the COVID is an opportunity for the technology, and that the digitalization will allow providing of public services to remote areas, for example. But she says that the investment for internet access is necessary and that telework is an advantage, but she asks specifically how to deal with other aspects. For example, the human relationship, how to deal with home chores or joint responsibility at home. how to deal with the increase in anxiety related to the digital infrastructure, cybersecurity, etc.
Okay, so Chuy or Steve, who wants to jump in with some ideas?
I actually wrote, I don't know if it's visible, I wrote a little follow-up comment on what Elizabeth asked, and I was sharing the concept that I'm seeing on the about ethical AI. I mean, since the PhD since 2012, I've never heard ethical AI, and now it's on the rise. It's out there, and beyond its direct implications on the use of artificial intelligence and data and data privacy or data concerns in general, I think it's a signal on where we are going. Right? It's a how we need to be prepared for a world beyond standard or regular concerns that we have, such as knowing that there's the Googles, the Facebooks, the Apples behind your data. So be wise on how you use your information. But that always felt like an optional world, like an opportunity where I can tap and maybe make some business and connect with some people, but I don't need to be there. That's only a nice to have to be on the digital world. But now it has become a must have. Now we need to be on that digital world because we are isolated. We are on our homes. We are working remotely. So now that the digital has become a must have, change and what's the next concern. So I believe these things about ethics, data, getting on the rise. They are going to show us how we need to reshape the value, the economic value on how we create money out of information of people. This also leads into cybersecurity. This also leads into different topics that I wish we had the time to deepen enough. But in general, what I believe it's heading towards a world where we are going to see the digital as a basic need. Just in the last days, we were chatting, and this is also a thing about the Foro GovTech forum next week. Diana is moderating a panel where Miguel Porrua from the IDB is participating. Yeah. And when we were doing the preps on the session, he said, I want to share about the public policies and the new regulations and maybe human rights on the right to get disconnected. So it was like, what? Is this even a thing? Like, we are closing the gap. We're trying to connect remote rural areas. What's this thing about the right to get disconnected? So that's where the world is headed, for us to have the right to get disconnected and live life. So yeah.
And Sumi,
that will be my contribution on that question.
Steve?
Yeah, I think that's a really valid point. I teleworked for 20 years. At IBM, I worked from home when I wasn't traveling, and very quickly your teleworking life can become your life, and you can find yourself feeling very glamorous having teleconferences on the Acropolis in Athens, feeling very unglamorous answering text messages while you're having dinner with your family at home. So I think it becomes increasingly important as we telework to start making differentiations between the home life and the work life. And that on the one side, it's a tremendous opportunity for women to participate in a workplace in which they can participate as equals from home and balance their private life with their work life. But on the other side, it can also become a very dangerous environment in which you can't, the lines blur between your private life and your work life. And so I think as we move into this fully digitized world, as long as we have a pandemic for 2 years more before vaccines are widely available, I think it's really important for employers to make sensible policies limiting the hours in which employees can be counted on to work. Otherwise, we can develop remote sweatshops in which people are constantly slaves to their work environment. Private life and the work, especially if there are lockdowns and people can't leave their homes, then it becomes even more imperative that there's a differentiation between family life and work life when everybody's sitting in the same apartment or the same home.
I know, that's crazy. You have to separate the spaces. Actually, we were working here with my husband in the same space here. This is my living room. And he used to sit, and I'm going to show you here. I used to have here my the area where we had like this desk here, and we decided to move this to a different room that we have back there, just for him to set up an office, because I was talking, 24/7 from 6 or 5 a.m. in the morning to 6, 7 p.m. And I was talking, and he was having a lot of meetings as well. So what he used to do, it's just when I started a meeting, he left and just, to the other room or to our bedroom. And we decided to move the office because we need to have separate spaces. This is one of the things. The other thing is that I usually get a shower, I usually get dressed, because I'm just having this mind that I have to start working in my office, even though I'm at home, right? So I don't know if you have seen these, fun videos of people that it's there in these Zoom webinars and whatever, and they are in their underwears, with the jacket, or, well dressed up, but in the bottoms they have whatever,
like
right?
They're wearing a nice shirt and they're wearing shorts underneath.
I know.
Right.
Please confess.
Yes.
Do you have your bottoms like that? Probably no.
Wearing jeans.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, I know. So
Right.
my message here, you have to assume that if you're working from home, you have to separate the spaces. You have to have your own space for your family. And even though you have a very limited area, try to separate that and try to make yourself to think that you're not at home when you're working. So you get dressed up, you try to, get up early, and try to use the time that you used to commute to make something fun or to cultivate some sort of hobby. We are doing at UNDP these meetings, staff meetings, very short, 30 minutes every Friday. And people is trying to share what's the meaning of the pandemic. It's like a journal of the things they are doing. And a lot of people is cultivating past habits and new habits. So we are seeing people cooking amazing things. We are seeing people, tasting wine. We are seeing people painting, playing an instrument, or learning a new thing, or reading books that, we lost that opportunity. And what I'm seeing is that also this challenge to visual health, because we are overexposed to screens right now, and even children that are studying. I used to have this case with my one of my nephews. He had to go to the hospital like 5 days because he just had this migraine that was so, it was so critical, I want to say, because it was so high, it didn't disappear. And 5 days he had to go to the hospital because he just had to make like this cleanup, he had to reset and stay away from the screens, and then he could come back. So we need to think about the well-being of both children, which are the human capital of the future, and also the people that it's working for us. And what I'm talking about here, it's about the role of the companies of looking into the well-being of the workers. Even though they are away from the office, they're still working for you, So you have to provide all the things that they need to have this occupational safety ensured. I have a proper desk, have a proper chair, right? So I had to bring here, not all my desk, but my chair, because I was having these back pains the first month that we entered in the lockdown. And now we are in the general lockdown for 4 months. That's kind of crazy. And here in Panama, it's so stringent, the type of measures we are subjected as individuals, right? Men can go out a couple of hours, 3 days per week, women as well, in different days, We can go out on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and men on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. On Sundays, no one can go out. No one. This is absolutely, I don't know, and I'm from UNDP, but I want to say this from a very personal perspective. I think that's insane.
Yes.
We can't keep people under lockdown and pretend as, you know, as the governments that we are the parents. I remember like this reality show, the Big Brother, you know, the states are becoming big brothers. And I think that's kind of crazy because you have to transfer the responsibility to the citizen. In the end, it's about co-responsibility. We already discussed that. So the thing is, as a manager, as a CEO from a company, you have to ensure that both the mental distress, the burden of unpaid care, the domestic violence issues that are on the rise, anxiety, depression, suicidal cases are also on the rise. You have to make sure that you monitor the situation, the well-being of your workers beyond the health perspective related to the COVID.
Well,
you cannot keep tracing only COVID cases.
You know, I was thinking while you were talking that there's another area that, in a way, telework can become extremely disadvantageous to women because it reduces the social circle. So when you work in the office, you have the opportunity to develop relationships with other people. And you know from one of the comments you made earlier that women usually suffer in salary negotiations because they're not aware, many times they're not aware how much less they're making than men. And they may also not be aware of what other women are making who have similar positions in the company. And the only way to become aware of that is by developing networks, social networks with other people, trusted relationships. You're working from home, your ability to develop those trusted relationships is far lower. I know that I work with people all across the world at IBM that I never met physically. Most of the people, 90% of the people I never met physically. I knew their name, you know, I knew about their family, but I never developed a trusted relationship you develop with someone that you've met, like you and I met in Santiago, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's really important to developing the knowledge necessary to negotiate for yourself if you're trying to get a wage increase. I think that's something that we have to think about is how do we empower women who are now working remotely to develop networks of knowledge with other women so they can understand comparatively where are we and how do we improve our position to increase our wages and don't become victim of social isolation.
Of course. Okay, I love it. Any final words, Chuy?
No. I think we have shared how we are seeing the future, how things are still uncertain. Most of this is hypothesis. Yesterday, a friend of ours that has been isolated close by, he decided to come to my place, and he said, like, I just wanted to talk to someone that I believe in these words. So when is this thing going to be over? And I said, I don't believe it's going to be over. I believe it's going to be a 2 years kind of thing. And now that I heard Steven said the same 2 years,
yes,
it's like,
exactly.
okay, it's not me feeling like a wild guess. This is where things feel that are going. We are still unsure about how it's going to evolve. There are going to be a lot of contrasts. For example, founders of the company, he's Argentinian. They have been isolated and forced isolation since 4 months. They then flexibilize a little bit, but and that happened this last week in Mexico, here in the state of Nuevo León, where I live. They were saying like, okay, we need to be isolated. It's going to be enforced, and there were riots all over because it's no, you are violating my human rights. And I said like, wow, it's the same thing that is happening there. Yeah. But and there's a health benefit, but there is an economical impact, and there is this thing.
Of
like
course.
Not prepared. So I guess this is where you're gonna be playing. Hopefully, and I just gonna emphasize or restate what I've already shared. Hopefully, this is going to make us a little bit more empathetic with everyone, so that we can build a little bit of what the social fabric that I was saying that happened in OECD. So how can we do that with our city, with our nations, and with the region?
Yeah, definitely. So just a closing words from what we have discussed here and the main message that we as UNDP want to throw to the governments and the business sector. this is a triple impact crisis. It's a health crisis, yes, primarily, but it's also an economic crisis. We are seeing it, disruption of supply chains, you know, the disruptions to the mobility, the lockdowns are making, you know, virtually every industry to be affected, and even more some industries that are dominated by women as part of the workforce. The air and travel, you know, the most part of the women work as flight attendants and travel service agents. The apparel industry, you know, people is not buying clothes because we are staying at home, and everyone's it's just wearing the sweatshirts and everything, right? So when I make this type of reflection, the thing is that the businesses have to adapt, and that's the reason why we're seeing L'Oreal or Chanel that used to produce perfumes, and they are doing right now just manufacturing hand sanitizers, right? Or General Motors, that I believe it's the most amazing case. They have like this idle capacity, and they are providing services to Unilever because people it's buying essentials. So the workforce of General Motors is working for Unilever right now, part of the workforce. The other part of the workforce is manufacturing masks. General Motors that used to manufacture cars and ventilators, of course, that probably you would think it's more related to the core business. I'm not that sure, but maybe, because they are using the industrial capacity, but in the end, they are manufacturing masks. And the message is, you have to adapt. You cannot die, but you have to take into account the metrics of both the health metrics, the economic metrics, and the social metrics. When you combine that, you can get to see that the dashboard, the governmental dashboard, and if we use technologies, we should have like this digital dashboard with all the metrics there. Number of COVID cases, number of deaf people, number of whatever concentrations, geo-referenced, right? The economic measures as well, GDP reduction, all these surveys that have been launched by business associations on the impacts of the COVID crisis across the industry, across SMEs. Yes, we have to map out that. And then the social metrics, time utilization, the burden of care, the number of domestic violence cases, the number of XYZ, right? So when you have this dashboard, you can get to produce like a very smart public policy package based on a basket of policies, either a public policy package or even a, let's say, package of corporate business actions to address the COVID crisis. And my main message here to the business sector is we cannot continue to overlook those responsibilities that the business sector has in terms to support the solutions to the crisis, because they have to bring not only the money, but the capabilities, the creativity, the innovation, the technologies to address the crisis. And they have to move beyond this philanthropic perspective of the health equipment and PPE donations, right? The personal protective equipment and masks and whatever, ventilators, that's okay. And it was okay a couple of months ago. But right now we need to move and start thinking about the recovery and this continuum between the crisis, because this will be protracted. And you just said this, probably for 2 years. We will have like this temporary lockdowns, total lockdowns, targeted lockdowns by industry, by region, by municipality. But in the end, if we have a very solid monitoring system, even implemented in the public sector and in the private sector, you will get to make wise decisions, evidence-based decisions, and not only have a crisis group thinking of the COVID cases, because that's not enough. And you can, move into the continuum of the immediate crisis, the livelihoods crisis, and then move into the future of the economy, the society, because COVID-19 has disrupted in so many ways, at so many levels, our lives. So this is my main message. This is the message from UNDP. We invite you to join us next Monday. We will have a very similar session with an amazing Colombian company. They are a honey producers. They leverage technologies not only to sell, but to protect bees and to, educate people about the role of bees in the ecosystems and in the protection of life. So it's called Cocoma. It will be the commercial manager will be with us, Andres Cocoma, and also some of the people that works for them. And you are all invited to join. It will be 5 o'clock Monday afternoon at 5 o'clock EST. Please join us. It will be an amazing session. We will get to know more about them. And next Wednesday, 9 a.m. EST, the GovTech Latam Forum. It will be amazing. We will discuss about the role of the technology in governance, how to transit into a smart cities, and the transition towards a wise utilization of technologies to make informed decisions, public policy decisions. And it will be just amazing. Please register now. Registrations are open. We will use the Hopping platform. And Chuy, just to maybe make an invitation on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. For those listening, this is very focused on Latin America about the ecosystem of startups, public sector, multilateral organizations, and academia as well. What we are trying to do is to stitch together a digital space between these actors, which are regularly we're used to meet physically. So this is going to be the first edition of what we call the Foro GovTech. So you can see all the information at govtech.lat. There you can see all the panelists, all the sessions, and you can get your ticket. It's a free ticket. We were, to be honest, we were expecting around 300 people. Now we're reaching 600 people. So we're going way beyond what we were actually expecting. We believe that it's going to be a great conversation, and particularly Diana is going to be moderating a panel around economic impacts of the pandemic and all its implications on inclusion and gender as well. So I believe it's going to be a very powerful panel. There's people from almost every single country in Latin America. So yeah, join us. Take a look.
Great. So Chuy, some people it's asking, what is the background of the attendees of forum?
This is an interesting question because we were expecting to have mostly people working inside the public sector or multilateral organizations. But now, maybe this is a COVID kind of thing. We believe that there is a lot of people just getting out of curiosity to build the future of government. So we have a very diverse audience, people from the academia, researchers, people from organizations such as, for example, the OGP, government from Argentina, Colombia, Chile, Mexico. So it's a very diverse audience. There is no single pattern right now. I cannot tell that, oh, it's just academics. No, it's not like that. It's very diverse. And we are happy to see this because the promise behind what we are trying to build with the Foro GovTech, it's the future of governments. And if we want to build the future of governments, we need everyone to raise their voice. So probably that's what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. So just to let you know, and as Chuy explained when we started this conversation, this is not a Zoom webinar because we are so sick of Zoom, these bilateral conversations. So it will be through Hopping. It's an amazing platform which is more interactive. We will have interactive sessions. We'll get the chance to know more people, exchange numbers, exchange contacts, ideas, etc., and start building together the future of governance in Latin America and how we can, give some ideas to the world. Our panel that will happen on the 8th at 9:40 EST will also be streamed using our channels, And we will use also simultaneous translation using this same technology that we are using here, as you can see. So basically join us if you're in a different country, because we know we have people here from Africa, from Asia and the Pacific, from Europe and Central Asia, and also from Arab states. You are all invited to join at least our panel. We don't have simultaneous translation for the whole event right now, but at least our panel will be mainstream and will be translated into English, Spanish, and French. So you are all invited. Please forward this invitation and register today, because we have limited spots. So thank you very much, Chuy, Steve. This has been an amazing conversation. I think that it was the perfect appetizer for our forum, and I'm just really, really, really excited. I cannot wait for Wednesday to come.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, the team at UNDP, for providing us this space to share.
Sure.
Agreed. Thank you. It was really great.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Chuy. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Everyone, keep safe. Have a good day.